This is going to be a very deep point, but I think that as Western civilization has kind of gone away from being religious, like even back in the 90s, it was still kind of like normal to be Christian in the West, even if you weren't really like the most devout or practicing one. But it's kind of like very atheistic now, which again is fine. But there seems to be almost a need to be somewhat religious because a huge section of gamers have become that about game franchises and about game companies. To the point where it's like there's the Church of Square, and there's the Church of Bandai Namco, and there's the Church of FromSoftware. You can see where I'm going with this. And you criticize their game, even in a way that's minor, even in a way that's legitimate, and they will perceive it as like an attack on their entire identity and belief system. And they will lie and gaslight and bully and intimidate you to try and silence any fucking criticism about this. And I know this because I experienced this from a section of the Final Fantasy community. It happens whenever I was criticizing FF16 for having motion blur and not letting you turn it off. They were lying and saying like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, you're entitled to even want the option to turn off motion blur. No, fuck you. It looks like shit. You want it to look like shit by all means. And when they added a motion blur toggle in, all those people who defended it should have not used it. All right, if motion blur is not so bad, if you can't tell the difference, then keep it on, even though you can turn it off, you fucking dickheads. And I know I go on about Rebirth, but like that's a good example as well of the Church of Square. People wanted to enjoy that game and that remake so badly that they put their standards on hold, they put their blinders up, and they let that get away with shit that any other game company or any other game franchise will get crucified for. If Blizzard did anything like that with any of its games, it would get fucking dragged through the mud. And you know how I know this? Because Warcraft Reforged maybe made like 1 to 10% of the changes that the Rebirth trilogy did, and it got fucking destroyed for that. Now imagine if Blizzard did with Warcraft what Square did with FF7. Imagine that. Arthur shows up and says, the city must be purged. And then boom, fucking Ner'zhul, or the jailer, appears in front of him, surrounded by timeline fate-changing ghosts, and says, soon, Arthas, come to me. And then he does this again, every time you get to a new area. Then Uther the Lightbringer moonwalks in, does a Michael Jackson spin, and says, huh, you better not underestimate paladins. Oh, by the way, this is my real voice. I was just trying to act mature. Like, imagine that. And then Arthas like gets to Northrend. He doesn't even get Frostmourne yet. He gets to Northrend, and then the game's over. That's part 1 done. And then you have to wait 4 years for the next part to come out. Imagine if Blizzard did that. And that's what I mean by people with the Church of Square put their fucking blinders up and their standards on hold because they so desperately wanted to enjoy the remake trilogy. There you go. Anyway, rant over. I'm not wrong.